I'm assuming the campaign is
Welcome
the same
to
as
Path
the
of Exile
acts.
1 lore you need to know for Path of Exile 2 Part 2, the campaign. If you missed
Yeah,
Part 1,
okay, it is. Alright, sweet. I mean, I played most of the campaign. I didn't get through all of it, so why not? Let's check it out.
the link and intro are in the video description. This video outlines the most important bits and pieces of Path of Exile 1's 10-act campaign,
I
the
basically got through
essentials
like
you'll
Act
likely
4 and
want to know
5.
for Path of Exile 2. Like the video if you end up
Before Path
liking
of
it,
Exiles
and
2 came
subscribe
out,
for
we
more
just
unique
hopped
Path of
over.
Exile 2 content just like this. Act 1. The first 4 acts of Path of Exile 1 craft Part 1 of the game's 2-part campaign narrative. They tell the story of us, the Exile, and how we overcome the darkness of Rayclast after being banished to the mysterious continent by the leader of the sinister theocratic government of Oriath, High Templar Dominus. For example, the duelist is banished for killing a nobleman who insulted him. The witch is exiled for avenging the murder of her kin with the slaughter of a village. The Templar is sent to Rayclast for being too pious and disavowing the current Templar leadership. No matter which exile we play, we end up in a shipwreck and wash up on the shores of Rayclast on the Twilight Strand. Quickly, we make way to Lion Eye's Watch, an old outpost of the Eternal Empire. It's where General Marseilles Lion Eye battled and lost to King Kaum and Queen Hiri long ago, nearly cementing the defeat of the old Eternal Empire, the victory of High Templar Vol, and the washing of a purity wave over Rayclast. Famously, when Marseilles fell in battle, Kaum added his head to his unmatched belt. Remember, the Eternal Empire is the last civilization to hold power over the vast majority of Rayclast, the continent. But their civilization ended at the hands of a thaumaturgist named Malachi. Why? Well, we'll explain further in a bit. In the tiny settlement, we meet Bestil, Nessa, and Tarkley, with the latter two providing us with the most information about Rayclast, Lion Eyes, and the surrounding lands. Bestil rhymes and yaps a bunch, which I can respect. Past Lion Eye's Watch, we traverse the wild coasts of Rayclast and enter Axiom Prison, an old structure of the Eternal Empire. Once it was ruled by a well-respected warden, Lord Incarcerator Brutus. Now it is a ruin overrun with undead and necromancers. We discover the upper prison is being used as a laboratory by an Oriathan woman named Piety. She's researching thaumaturgy,
I
the
remember
twisted
her.
magic of Rayclast, as cataloged by a long-dead thaumaturgist transfigurist named Chevron. She runs before we may truly encounter her, and in pursuit, we come face to face with the reanimated corpse of Brutus, stitched together and empowered by Chevron herself. We slay the abomination, overcoming our first real match with thaumaturgy, and this is a key concept in Path of Exile lore. It's interwoven with civilizations past and present, although the villains so far, mostly Piety, rely on geniuses of a prior age, namely from the Eternal Empire. The first name we see is Chevron, but more will quickly pop up: Doedre and Meligaro. These are 3 names to likely remember for Path of Exile 2. And Path of Exile 1, of course, has no shortage of bringing the godless 3 up over and over. Thaumaturgy, or the wielding and twisting of dark magics and science, is the main weapon of antagonists in Part 1 of Path of Exile 1's campaign, and it's used for awful things. One example, of course, is Brutus, the prison warden we just downed. He was rebuilt while living by Chevron, turned into a berserk weapon to be used against the rebels following High Templar Vol during the Purity Rebellion. But he ended up slaughtering his creator and becoming a near-eternal watcher of Axiom Prison. Hillock, the beast of a man we killed after first washing up on the Twilight Strand, was another, albeit different. His undeadification occurred due to the Eternal Empire ending Cataclysm that forever changed the face of Rayclast.
Which was the
2
beast.
very different thaumaturgical causes for abominations to be created, but very similar outcomes. This idea is almost 100% in Path of Exile 2, pursued by a very different, incredibly legendary individual. We pursue Piety outside the Warden's chambers, attempting to move
Oh,
inland,
I remember the city
but she blocks our passage,
recently.
forcing us to delve into the ship graveyard and then the lair of the Siren Merveil. With a quick stint speaking to Captain Fairgraves about a cursed object, we dive into the Siren's caves and learn of her downfall, yet again to a thaumaturgical object, the Star of Rayclast, rumored to be a necklace with a virtue gem pendant. For those who did not watch the basics of Path of Exile 1's lore video, Virtue gems are crystallized corruption, stones that give tremendous power like the skills us exiles use, but can also negatively impact anyone who uses or wears them, particularly if they directly interact with your flesh. Their origins, while thought to be the beast, something we'll talk about very soon for the longest time, may be a little bit more ancient. The star, combined with the betrayal of her husband Doreso, turned the beautiful singer of the Grand Sarn arena of the Eternal Empire into a twisted beast, a siren. Hundreds of years after her transformation, we slay her and enter the second act of Path of Exile 1, in pursuit of piety and more answers. Act 2. Now inland, we reach the Forest Encampment, a settlement mostly run by Asmirians, the predecessors of the Eternal Empire, tribal and still alive. Inside are Groost, an Asmiri with a disdain for outsiders, Aramir, who is an old exile like us, Yina, who is a bit of a wild one, and Silk, who is quite the talkative spider. In Act 2, we decipher a bit more about the Eternal Empire, the connection between piety and High Templar Dominus, why the two are so interested in the Eternals, and we learn a bit more about the Val, a civilization that far predated even the Eternals and the Asmirians. We discussed the Val in the first video. You need to remember them, and in particular, the mysterious Doriani, for when you play Path of Exile 2. Doriani was to the Val what Dominus and Piety are to the present, or Malachi was to the Eternal Empire. He was the master thaumaturgist and probably behind the downfall of the ancient Val civilization. More on him in Path of Exile 2. We learn the most from
He was the Darth
Aramir,
Vader,
the fellow Oriathan exile who once worked for Dominus and entertained the ambitious man's interests in the Eternal Empire's research of thaumaturgy. What a mistake that was. He provides insight on the next Eternal Dominus and Piety fancy, Inquisitor Malagaro, whose laboratory lies near the Forest Encampment, a fetid locale known as the Chamber of Sins. Remember, Malagaro matches with Chevron and Doedre. We head there and delve within, discovering and imprisoning.
After being at the tippity top, the Eternals are now just like a tribe of people in the forest. That's freaking wild.
Named Helena, a former member of the Order of the Templar who served Piety. She witnessed both Piety and Dominus's insane lust for power. As a devout of the Ebony Legion, she thought the duo were working to restore the Eternal Empire with their study of its lost icons, but in truth, they merely seek the power locked within thaumaturgy and virtue gems. Men like Malagaro further experimented on virtue gems to increase their immense corruptive power, like one such craft known as the Baleful Gem, which we find when we rescue Helena. A failed experiment, it's an example of what Piety and Dominus might wish to accomplish. With guidance from Aramir and Helena, we push through the wilds of Rayclast and break through a blocked-off Val ruin using a concoction brewed by the long-gone Malagaro. Inside, we surpass Val constructs and the living Val dead, until we accidentally unleash a great darkness upon Rayclast. It washes over the region, but its focal point lies at the apex of the pyramid, stored with a conjoined creature of metal, thaumaturgical and scientific might, the Val Oversoul. Dormant for centuries, if not longer, it awakens, the darkness giving it some semblance of sentience. Astonishingly, we, between slams, lasers, and balls of freezing cold, deconstruct the odd Val machine. The Val, gone as they are, wiped from the world in an instant, left behind a fantastical array of vile machinations and undiscovered secrets. If only there was a way we could see them at their peak, when they wielded the brutal might of thaumaturgy with the genius of Doriani. The way forward opened to what's left of the city of Sarn, the old capital of the Eternal Empire, and thusly Piety and our exiler High Templar Dominus. We slide down the side of the Val Pyramid and enter the dilapidated lands of the once great Eternals. Act 3.
Yeah, I remember.
Act 3
I
pits
remember
us
chasing
directly
after
against
Piety.
the servants of Piety and Dominus as we breach our way to each of
This
their
seems a
respective
lot more like where I was
thaumaturgical laboratories.
left off at.
Concurrently, we decipher what these two are meaning to do with their time in Rayclast. We enter the ruins of Sarn and quickly save a woman named Clarissa, who points us to the crematorium, a smaller experimental hub for piety where she's currently tormenting Clarissa's love, Tolman. Therein, we find Tolman too late and battle Piety and her Blackguard servants for the first real time, only for her to teleport away. It seems she was attempting to lodge virtue gems into Tolman, to no avail. Back in the Sarn encampment, a fraction of what the Eternal Capital once looked like, we meet Hargan, a bombastic but conniving merchant, Maramoa, a Karui descendant of Kaum who intentionally became an exile to be free of slavery in Oriath, and Grigor, a fleshy shell of an Ozomite man who was experimented on
I remember
by
these
Piety.
dudes.
We learn from Grigor and few other places in Act 3 that Piety is attempting to recreate the genius of the Eternals' Gemling Legion. Back in their prime, the Eternals managed to socket virtue gems into humans, creating formidable weapons of war. However, the process is meticulous, the repercussions of mistakes massive, and the secrets to actually succeeding seemingly lost to the thaumaturgists of the present. Keep Gemlings in your mind for Path of Exile 2 as well, as one of the ascension options of the Path of Exile 2 mercenary class is indeed a Gemling Legionnaire. And as we've seen with the huge improvements to Path of Exile storytelling
I didn't even
in the
think about
sequel,
that.
this will have lore repercussions as it did with Grigor and other Gemlings, attempted and full-on warrior monstrosities. We also discover Grigor felt something that surpassed his limits of mortal comprehension when Piety was grafting his body, some creature to which he was but a raindrop falling into a sea. He heard Piety call this creature the Beast to her lackeys, a being to which she owed all thaumaturgy, a being which was the object of her ambitions. Grigor claims this beast is the source of all malformation in Rayclast. Inspired by the troop at the Sarn encampment, we first head to the Solaris Temple to confront one of Dominus's top men, General Gravicius, easily down him, and end up meeting with one of the last remaining original Gemlings, Lady Diala, the Gemling Queen. Over 200 years old when we meet her, she was a gift to Malachi, master thaumaturgist of the Eternal Empire.
Over
Poor
200.
Diala obviously has lost her mind.
She aged really
She
well.
was a plaything of Emperor Chittis, one of the rulers of the Eternals, and Malachi after him. And as a toy of Malachi, he turned her into a Gemling. Obviously, he was more successful than Piety, but even with such success, he ruined the mind of Lady Diala. With her help, us exiles, also called Not a Cockroach by Lady Diala, pursue Piety into the deepest reaches of the Lunaris Temple, which she has transformed into a pit of torture, bloodshed, and thaumaturgical thought. At least thousands are dead in the depths of the Lunaris Temple, victims of Piety's attempts at mimicking the likes of Malachi in pursuit of the Beast. It appears the discussed
So she was
presence
just
in this
trying to
area
she was
of
trying
Path
to
of
create
Exile
another
1
one.
might just be surpassed in Path of Exile 2, with someone also in love with death and corruption. At long last, with nowhere to run, we confront Piety, who has been helping Dominus send more and more exiles to Rayclast to experiment on with virtue gems and other thaumaturgical designs, all in pursuit of this dark beast and the power it holds. Alone, she dies, and on her body is the key to the Scepter of God, where High Templar Dominus awaits. We rush across the remnants of the Empire to the gargantuan Scepter of God, a structure so massive it's incomprehensible to the minds of mere humans. Atop it is High Templar Dominus's laboratory, wherein he seeks to make Nightmare a reality. We battle through Emperor Chittis's beasts and creations of Dominus, navigating a twisted maze of experimental devices, ruined chambers, and toppled staircases. At the tower's pinnacle, we find Dominus and a host of misfigured miscreants, injected with nightmare, virtue gems, and whatever foul machinations High Templar Dominus could find in his Eternal Empire research.
Damn, so all these
Pack by
creatures are just
pack, we
people
overcome them until High
stuffed
Templar
full of
Dominus
virtue gems
addresses
and
us,
corruption.
an exile capable of confronting him.
I didn't even
and
think
attacks.
about that.
We best his mortal form, but then he claims reality is an illusion, before sinking into the very fabric of Rayclast, emerging from the reality hole as a malignant, demonic abomination with very little of his self remaining. Blood rains down on us as we fight the
The
monstrosity.
hell?
But we succeed in our mission of revenge, slaying High Templar Dominus, ending he and Piety's exiling and experimentation of criminals and innocents alike. What the heck just happened, though? As soon as Dominus falls, Lady Diala, the Gemling Queen, portals in and congratulates us on killing the Bug Emperor, but beckons we continue to Highgate and Mount Baruso beyond that, where we shall dive headlong into the Nightmare Sea and catch and roast ourselves a nice, big fishy. Despite her obvious rambling insanity, she knows something more. Something important about the past that must lie in Highgate and the mountain beyond. Something that answers the questions we have. So we listen to the Gemling Queen. Part 1 of Path of Exile 1's campaign comes to a head in Act 4, which is likely one of the most consequential portions of the entire Path of Exile 1 narrative for Path of Exile 2, but it's incredibly simple. Dominus, Piety, Chavron, Meligaro, Malachi, really every big bad evil guy in Rayclast history seems to derive their power from this one creature vital to the Act 4 narrative. Even us exiles, using virtue gems in our gear, derive power from it, in a way, we believe. Act 4 brings us, finally, to and quite literally into the Beast. In Highgate, a town built on the side of Mount Veruso, we meet various individuals who live in the shadow of this terrible mountain and realize the beast lives within its core. Herein, we meet Pataris, Vanja, Kira, Tasuni, Oyun, and meet up with Lady Diala once more, who helps us burrow inside the belly of the beast using the machine her lover and demise, Malachi, used to enter the beast initially. During this act, we learn a bit more about Vol and his purity rebellion against the darkness of the Eternal Empire. Then a bit more about Kaum and Dureso, two characters we've already mentioned. We leap into distant realities, the dreams of Kaum and Dureso, to help repower the Rapture device, to break into the living beast alongside Lady Diala. We down the memories of both Rayclastian legends, take their essence to Lady Diala. She attempts to turn on Malachi's ingenious device, and it tears a way into the belly of the beast. This is from where Malachi unleashed the Cataclysm onto Rayclast, forever corrupting the land. Walking now on the flesh of a seemingly primordial being, we slaughter our way nearer to the beast's heart until we stumble upon an old foe, Piety. Corrupted and vile, we strike her down and she reveals it was Malachi who initially reached out to her, courted her into Nightmare, made her a slave, and he's alive and well inside the black core of the beast. Yes, Malachi is actually alive. He didn't die during the Cataclysm, but he did unleash it upon the Eternal Empire. He lives on inside the depths of the beast, believing it to be tamed, his own nightmare-made reality. In truth, it appears the beast has consumed him and left him trapped inside. He enlisted the trusted Godless Three, Inquisitor Malagaro, Chavron of Umbra, and Doedre Darktongue to guard the path into the black core of the beast. If we down them and bring Piety, now our ally, what remains of them, she'll be able to open the way to Malachi, and we can end this once and for all. We find the organs, bring them to Piety, and finally, in the literal guts of the quivering beast, we duel Malachi alongside her. The ruined thaumaturge mocks us throughout the battle, corrupting Piety and drawing on her life force. Alas, we rip the corruption from her and she continues to batter the master thaumaturge until he implants her on a massive scepter and retreats into the deepest innards of the beast. Piety tries to pull herself from the stake, but cannot. She beckons us to finish Malachi once and for all, so we pursue the nightmare into his final destination. Beleaguered and bloody, we match Malachi and eviscerate hearts of the titanic beast one by one, until we slay the last organ and deal the killing blow to Malachi, whose demonic body implodes before exploding in a mess of gut and bone. Malachi is dead. The beast is also dead. Supposedly the source of all malformation and thaumaturgy in Rayclast. What are the repercussions of this? How did the beast come to be? Could there be others?
Well, now, I mean, I guess the skill gems would still have like the power, the corruption, I guess, that they would have, right? Because it's just like condensed corruption.
We discover the answers to some of those questions quite quickly in Path of Exile 1, and others in the sequel, Path of Exile 2. A
Yeah, we
tiny
know about.
spoiler for the very first cutscene in Path of Exile 2's introduction. This, right here, is another beast, a seed of corruption, and the initial antagonist of Path of Exile 2, the Iron Count Gianor, who is attempting to foster the seed's vile growth, alongside a mysterious woman and champion of light. I couldn't be more excited to dive into what exactly that means and how it will play out. The beast we encounter is old, incredibly ancient, as we discover almost immediately in the next act
And I mean,
of
he
Path
just
of Exile 1.
he just keeps freaking like
5.
feeding it.
The final 6 acts of
Like
Path
people.
of Exile 1 comprise the campaign's second
And,
part,
like,
and
I
they
think he's
tell
also
a very
feeding it,
different
like-
style of story than Part 1, in a completely new
I think he's also
manner.
feeding it virtue stones, right? That's why they were mining for it.
Wherein the tale of Acts 1 through 4 may be seen and summarized as a down-to-earth story about corruption and revenge, Acts 5 through 10 up the stakes massively, creeping us exiles into the realm of God-slayers by partway through Act 5. As a whole, I reckon few of the plot points and characters introduced during these acts will be truly consequential to Path of Exile 2, unlike the story beats outlined for Acts 1 through 4, and the upcoming lore content in the endgame and league breakdown videos. The few with consequences shall be highlighted now, alongside brief snippets about all the named icons in this part of the game afterward. To kick off Act 5, we learn Theopolis, the capital of Oriath, and the Order of the Templar is in disarray, with Karui slaves and others rebelling against the Templar overseers. Oriath is one of those things you'll want to remember. We climb Mount Veruso to activate a portal that brings us to Oriath, wherein we discover the entire city of Templars is alight. Something has caused this mighty rebellion that we decide to take a part of. We side with the rebels and defeat the dead Dominus's successor, High Templar Avarius. We battle through the streets of Theopolis and into the Chamber of Innocence, a temple dedicated to the Templar's chief deity, wherein we duel High Templar Avarius and quickly dispatch of him. However, upon his demise, a being of pure radiance bursts from his
Innocence?
body, the Templar deity Innocence. He's another person you want to remember. Barely,
Okay.
we down him as well, but upon his defeat, something whisks him away and another form manifests before us, a being opposite to Innocence in all ways, black as night and steady-voiced.
Oh,
His
Sin!
name is Sin, another god of Rayclast, and the brother to Innocence. Sin is the next vital character, introduced in Acts 5 through 10. Sin explains the breadth of the situation. Somehow, the gods have returned to Rayclast, among them himself, his brother, Innocence, who he shot to a new host, and Kitava, the Karui god of hunger, who is the cause for catastrophe enveloping Oriath. He claims to essentially save all of Rayclast, Kitava must be slain using Innocence's sign of purity. Though we obtain the sign of purity, we nearly fall in our battle against Kitava, but are saved by Sin, who beckons us to return to Rayclast, Lion-Eye's Watch in particular, and grow in strength. Acts 6 through 8. This brings us to Act 6, where we immediately learn the biggest plot point of the entirety of Part 2. The beast was created by Sin long ago to put the gods of Rayclast to sleep and hopefully save humanity. Sin made it to free humanity from the tyranny of gods. But humans like Queen
Oh.
Natsiri, Doriani, Emperor Chittis, Malachi, and others before them manipulated the beast for their own gain. We learn the thing that, to many, is the source of virtue gems, of all corruption, of all thaumaturgy, is meant to be a dormant, kind creature, attempting to keep the world safe. That obviously did not happen.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Succinctly, when we killed the beast in
yeah, you know,
Malachi
we wouldn't
in
say it
Act
was.
4,
You don't say.
we reawakened all the sleeping gods of Rayclast. Acts 6 through 10 see us venturing across mostly already trodden grounds, slaying deities alongside Sin, him gathering their essence alongside us, and us attempting to reform a dark ember, to recreate the seed that first spawned the beast. To do so, we revisit the souls of Chevron, Malagaro, and Doedre. Malachi's most trusted, dedicated thaumaturgists, and collect the necessary materials to re-enter the deceased beast and spark the Dark Ember for a final battle with Kitava, god of hunger. This entire lore thread is almost certainly vital to Path of Exile 2's story, from what we know and have seen in trailers. We'll revisit the Dark Ember in Path of Exile 1 at the end of Act 9, right before entering the 10th Act. The remainders of Acts 6 through 9, we fight and slay 12 gods and goddesses of Rayclast while re-encountering reimagined versions of the Godless 3 of the Eternal Empire. 12 gods downed and humanity a bit safer for the time being, we enter the still remains of the beast, killed by us at the end of Act 4. Act 9 and 10. Chevron of Umbra's passionate spirit obtained in Act 6.
Oh, and now it's all
Inquisitor
rotten.
Maligaro's sinister soul ripped in Act 7. Doedre Darktongue's septic soul stolen in Act 8. And us, the exile, now deep within the rotting, dark core of the beast in Act 9. Sin weaves the souls all together to form the unholy trinity and spark the beast's dark ember once more. We overcome this horrific abomination and, dark ember in Sin's hand, we survive a wave of blood and set sail once more to Oriath to confront and kill Kitava, seemingly the most powerful of the gods. Now in Act 10, we discover Oriath has become a massive bloody tomb, bodies flowing the way of Kitava, the god fed by a slew of cultists. With the help of Sin, we awaken innocence at the sacrifice of one of our noble allies, Bannana, and team with the two brother gods, once mortal enemies, to kill Kitava. We slaughter our way through hordes of Kitava cultists and abominations before confronting the god of hunger deep in his ruined lair above Oriath. Though the battle is hard fought, with the assistance of Innocence, Sin, and the Dark Ember, Kitava explodes in a nova of blood and bone taken from this world. We regroup back at the Oriath docks with Sin and Innocence, learning that Innocence has imposed self-exile on himself for the millions of people he has murdered, and shall venture as far south as one can go. As for Sin,
I'm just gonna go south.
Sin rejoices.
That's his punishment.
in the
Just
death
go
of Kitava.
south.
But past that,
Or become a
we know
bird.
little. As we slew each deity from Acts 6 to 10, Sin was always alongside us, gathering their power. Perhaps he used it to destroy Kitava. Perhaps he has drawn most of it into himself with a little spreading to us. Perhaps there's a darker side to Sin than we know. The Dark Ember was supposedly used in the battle against Kitava. We think. Nothing comes
Yeah, but
of
the
it
seed is still
after
there.
Kitava dies, and we don't see it during the battle. Could this Dark Ember, a seed of the beast, just be out there with Sin or lost by him at some point after the battle with the god of hunger? More gods, like Sin, Innocence, and Tangmazu, still wander Rayclast, though Sin can barely sense them. Their presence may wane with time, or grow as they find more people to flock to their might. What's known is the tremendous impact the creation and death
So does that
of
mean
Sin
that the
Beast
hooded one
had
is
on
Sin?
Rayclast. Without it, gods ran amok before. Once it was created, a period of tranquility existed, but those with ambitious evil quickly took hold of the peaceful beast and used it for ill gain, to spawn at least 2 cataclysms upon Rayclast during the peak of the Val and the Eternals. Then, once
So
it was
yeah,
slain,
the hooded one
gods
is
once again
Sin,
rampaged across
and
the
he
world.
lost the
But for
freaking
us,
seed.
the exile, they were no match. With only a few gods remaining, and no beast alive to check their power, what will happen, if anything, in Path of Exile 2? Will the gods be relevant? Well, plenty can change in 20 years, especially if there's some new eldritch thaumaturgical debauchery involved. And, as we mentioned before, a brand new beast. Next up, with Kitava and 12 other rampaging gods killed, us exiles temporarily celebrate a job well done. We are now god slayers, but little do we know the horrors that await us beyond our own world, even if they may have originated from it. Next up, we discuss the various endgame lore of Path of Exile 1, from the Shaper to the Searing Exarch. After that, we shall talk about which POE 1 leagues will be important to Path of Exile 2's story, like Breach and the Breach Lords, like the Dreamer Chayula, and the Forbidden Sanctum, Lycia and beyond. Is there anything else players need to know about Path of Exile 1's lore for Path of Exile 2?
What a phenomenal video, my dude.
If you like this video, like it and subscribe to Talkative Try for more POE 2 content. I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, bro. So let me freaking share this video.
Sane.
Phenomenal. No, I'm glad because again, like I said, I think I pretty much could guarantee. I got to about Act 5, Act 4, Act 5. I did not finish it, and that's not because the game like wasn't great or anything like that. I freaking loved it. Me and Chaos and Burrito, we were going through the whole game, but you know, just time went by. We couldn't get on as often. Other games came out. We got distracted. Work and all that good stuff. And so every once in a while, every like month or so, we come back, play some more, go through quite a few missions. Honestly, we kind of got obsessed with like grinding certain pieces of armor and really min-maxing. And so we kind of got lost in the sauce when it came to like just basically just grinding out certain levels, leveling up, getting our skills. We had a lot of fun with it. We didn't really concern ourselves too much with the campaign, but we played the heck out of that game, dude. But yeah, then we heard Path of Exile 2 was coming out. We got super excited and said, well, let's hold off and see what's going on. I still want to go back and finish playing it, but you know, at this point, it's gonna be a while, you know. So I'm so glad to be able to like watch it. I'm glad this video was out. That way, it helps me like catch up on what the frick is happening on this new one. And now I have a deeper understanding on what's going on. It's freaking dope. I'm kind of curious to see who the frick this lady is that's like running around with the seed. Alright, thank you so much for the video, my dude. Freaking phenomenal. Thanks for hanging out. Like or dislike, comment, and subscribe. And become a Monodachi today. I live stream all day, Monday through Friday, so go say hi. That's all for now, Monos. Goodbye, and thanks for swinging by. Salut!